My best friend's husband kept flirting with me. I shut him down, until one day, I found out why. My own husband had been sleeping with her. Shaking, I hatched a plan. That night, I invited her husband over, poured us a glass of wine, and played a video on the TV. It was security footage from a hotel. My best friend and my husband, hand in hand, walking into a room. As the clip ended, I smirked and said, "So, should we even the score? I don't even know where to start with this." My hands are shaking as I type. My best friend, Sophie, and I have been inseparable since college. We went through everything together, bad breakups, late-night study sessions, job hunting, even picking out each other's wedding dresses. I used to think of her as my sister. That was before everything fell apart. Sophie married Mark, a straightforward, quiet guy who was always polite but not overly friendly. I married Jake, my college sweetheart, the guy I thought I'd spend forever with. For years, our lives were intertwined, double dates, vacations, birthday celebrations. It was comfortable. Safe. Then, about a year ago, Mark started acting different. At first, it was small things. A lingering glance. A joke that felt a little too personal. The way his hand would accidentally brush mine when handing me something. I chalked it up to my imagination. Mark wasn't that kind of guy. But then the compliments started. "You always look amazing, you know that? You're way too good for Jake." If things were different, I shut him down every time. I reminded him he was married. I reminded him I was married. I laughed it off, told him to behave, kept my distance. But he didn't stop. If anything, he got bolder. I didn't tell Sophie. I didn't want to hurt her. I convinced myself it wasn't worth blowing up our friendship. I should have. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday, and I had planned a quiet evening, just me, some wine, and a Netflix show I'd been meaning to watch. Jake had told me he'd be working late. But around 8 p.m., I got a text from Mark. "Mark, can we talk? It's important." I hesitated. This wasn't normal. He'd never texted me outright like this. I ignored it. A few minutes later, another text. "Mark, please. It's about Sophie and Jake." My stomach dropped. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. Why would he mention my husband? I tried to brush it off. Maybe he needed advice. Maybe he and Sophie were having problems, and he thought I could help. But something felt off. I finally texted back. "Me, what is it?" He replied almost instantly. "Mark, not over text. Meet me." I felt sick. I didn't want to do this. But curiosity, no, fear, got the better of me. We met at a small coffee shop, the kind that stayed open late for students cramming for exams. Mark looked like he hadn't slept in days. He had bags under his eyes, his clothes were wrinkled, and he kept fidgeting with his wedding ring. "I need you to listen," he said the second I sat down. "And don't interrupt." I nodded, gripping my cup so hard my knuckles turned white. Then he told me everything. Sophie had been having an affair. With Jake. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Mark kept talking, his voice tight with anger. He'd found out months ago, but hadn't known what to do. He'd gone through their texts, seen the hotel receipts, even followed them once. He hadn't confronted Sophie yet. He'd been trying to find proof strong enough that she couldn't talk her way out of it. "You're lying," I whispered. I didn't even recognize my own voice. "I wish I was." He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see. But I did. Texts. Pictures. Time-stamped hotel check-ins. One video. My husband and my best friend, walking into a hotel room together, hand in hand. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I don't remember leaving the coffee shop. I don't remember driving home. I just remember sitting in my car, parked outside my house, staring at the place where Jake and I had built a life together. I stayed out there for hours. My phone buzzed nonstop, Jake asking where I was, Mark checking in. I ignored them all. At some point, something inside me shifted. I wiped my face. Sat up straighter. Took a deep breath. If they wanted to play dirty, fine. I could play dirtier. I texted Mark. "Me, come over tomorrow night. I have an idea." His reply came almost instantly. "Mark, what are you thinking?" I looked up at my dark house, the place that suddenly felt like a stranger's home. "Me, I think it's time to even the score. I don't know what's going to happen next. But one thing's for sure. They won't see it coming. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, Jake's hand on Sophie's waist, their secret smiles, the hotel door closing behind them. My stomach twisted, rage and heartbreak tangling together until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. By morning, my mind was clear. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to ruin them. Mark showed up at my house that evening. He looked worse than the night before, like he'd barely held himself together. He stepped inside, rubbing a hand over his face. "You sure about this?" he asked. I poured 2 glasses of wine, my hand steady. "Absolutely." I walked to the living room and picked up the remote. Mark sat down slowly, eyes flicking to the TV. I hit play. The screen flickered to life, and there they were. Sophie and Jake. The grainy hotel security footage showed them walking into the room together. Holding hands. Laughing. Mark's jaw clenched. His grip on the wine glass was tight, fingers whitening. I turned to him, my voice low. "So," I said, "should we even the score?" He let out a slow breath. "How far are you willing to go?" I met his eyes. "As far as it takes." Mark nodded, something unreadable passing over his face. "Then I have an idea." I wasn't expecting that. He set down his glass, leaned forward, and spoke in a voice that sent chills down my spine. "We don't just expose them. We make them destroy each other." The next few days were a blur. Mark and I weren't just working together, we were in sync. Every move calculated. Every piece carefully placed. The first step? Make Jake and Sophie doubt each other. It started small. A missing earring in Sophie's car, one of mine, left on purpose. A receipt from a jewelry store Jake had never been to, placed on our kitchen counter. Then, the messages. I used a burner phone to send Sophie texts that made her suspicious. "Unknown number, are you sure he's being faithful? You should check his phone." Then I sent one to Jake. "Unknown number, does she seem distracted lately? Maybe she's seeing someone else, too." The paranoia set in fast. Sophie started texting Jake more, asking what he was doing, where he was. Jake got defensive. I watched it unravel from the sidelines, sipping my coffee while they spiraled. Mark did his part, too. He started coming home late, refusing to answer Sophie's calls right away. When she finally confronted him, he just smiled and shrugged. "You don't like it, huh?" he said. "Weird, neither do I." By the end of the first week, I noticed Jake watching me. He was tense, unsettled. One night, I caught him staring while I folded laundry. "You've been quiet lately," he said. I shrugged. "Just busy." "Busy with what?" The way he asked, like he was trying to read me, made me want to laugh. Instead, I smiled. "Why? You worried I'm seeing someone?" His face twisted, just for a second. I saw it. The flicker of doubt. Good. Mark and I decided it was time for something bigger. We planned a dinner. The 4 of us. Just like old times. Sophie and Jake didn't know we had spoken. They had no idea we were working together. The tension was thick the second we sat down at the restaurant. Jake kept glancing at me. Sophie was tapping her nails against her glass, looking irritated. Mark played it cool, his expression unreadable. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself and left my phone accidentally unlocked on the table. Mark picked it up, frowned, and turned the screen toward Jake. "Hey, man," he said casually. "Your wife's getting some interesting texts." Jake took the phone. His face went pale. The screen showed a message from my burner number, the one I had been using to text Sophie. "Unknown number, you really think he's faithful? He's been seeing someone else." Jake looked at me, suspicion flaring in his eyes. "Who the hell is texting you?" I acted confused. "I don't know. I thought it was a scam." Sophie leaned forward. "Let me see." Jake pulled the phone closer. "No. This is weird." I tilted my head. "You look nervous." "I'm not," he snapped. "Liar." I watched Sophie, saw the way her jaw tightened. "Good. Keep doubting." Then, for the final push, Mark sighed dramatically. "Man, this is starting to feel a little familiar," he said, sipping his drink. "Like when I found those texts on Sophie's phone." Silence. Jake turned to Sophie. "What?" She stiffened. "Mark, don't start." Mark leaned back, arms crossed. I'm just saying. This is exactly how it started when I found out she was cheating. Jake's face darkened. Cheating? With who? Sophie shot Mark a warning look. But it was too late. Mark smirked. You tell him, babe. I watched the color drain from Sophie's face. She looked at Jake, panic flashing across her features. Mark, let's not tell him. She swallowed hard. I don't know what you're talking about. Jake's expression was pure suspicion now. He knew something was wrong. He wasn't stupid. Maybe I should check your phone, Jake said. Sophie's hand twitched toward her purse. Just a slight movement, but Jake saw it. I watched it all unfold, my heart pounding in satisfaction. Mark and I didn't need to say anything else. We had planted the seeds. Now, we just had to watch them grow. Later that night, after Jake and I got home, he sat on the couch, staring at the floor. Finally, he looked up. Are you seeing someone? I let the question hang in the air. Then, I smiled. Why? I asked softly. Are you? His face flickered with something, guilt, fear, doubt. I turned away before he could answer. This was only the beginning. The next few days were a masterpiece of chaos. Jake was unraveling. Sophie was unraveling. And Mark and I? We were watching it all burn from the inside. But something happened that I didn't expect. I woke up to an email. No sender name, no subject. Just a single video attachment. At first, I thought it was spam, maybe some phishing scam. But then I clicked. And my world cracked open all over again. It wasn't just Sophie and Jake in that hotel. It was them in my house. The video was grainy, clearly taken from a hidden camera, but I recognized everything, the couch, the coffee table, the damn throw pillows I had spent way too much money on. And there they were. Jake. Sophie. Together. In my home. I stared, frozen, as the video played. It wasn't just them walking in. It was them kissing the moment they shut the door. It was them stripping each other's clothes off. It was them using our bedroom. A strangled noise clawed its way out of my throat. My vision blurred. The hotel was bad enough. But this? This was war. I slammed my laptop shut, chest heaving. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the edge of the desk to steady myself. Who sent this? Mark? No. He already knew. He wouldn't be this cruel. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown number, hurts more when it's in your own bed, huh? I felt like I was going to be sick. I called Mark. He picked up on the first ring. Did you send me something? I demanded. He paused. No. What happened? I told him. Silence. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it, he said, someone else knows. This changed everything. Mark and I weren't the only ones playing this game. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. And they wanted me to hurt. I spent the next few hours combing through the video, looking for clues. There was nothing. No timestamps, no watermarks. Whoever sent it wanted to stay hidden. But they knew things. They had access to my house. They had access to my life. Mark and I met up that night at his place. He poured us drinks, whiskey this time. We need to find out who sent that, he said. I nodded. And when we do? His jaw tightened. We end them, too. I didn't have to wait long to figure out who was behind the video. 2 nights later, Sophie showed up at my door. Alone. She looked like hell. Makeup smeared, eyes puffy, hair a mess. She was gripping her phone so tight I thought she'd break it. The moment I opened the door, she pushed inside. What the hell is going on? She snapped. I played dumb. What are you talking about? She shoved her phone in my face. Text messages. Messages from the same unknown number that had sent me the video. Unknown number, does he know what you did? Unknown number, you're not as smart as you think, sweetheart. Unknown number, maybe it's time to come clean. I felt my stomach drop. Whoever this was, they weren't just playing with me. They were playing with all of us. Sophie's voice shook. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop. I raised an eyebrow. You think I sent those? She laughed bitterly. Of course I do. You've been acting weird. And Mark? He's practically begging me to slip up. I folded my arms. You're paranoid. She took a step closer. If you are behind this, you better stop now. Because if you don't, I cut her off. You'll what? Lie some more? Sleep with my husband again? Her face went red. And in that moment, I saw it. Fear. Real, genuine fear. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of whoever was texting us. You're afraid, I said slowly. Why? She swallowed hard. I think we're in trouble, she whispered. The next morning, I got another email. This time, it wasn't a video. It was a message. Unknown sender, you think you're in control? Unknown sender, I'm the one pulling the strings. Unknown sender, watch carefully. It's about to get worse. Attached was a single photo. A picture of me. Taken from inside my house. While I was sleeping. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want. But I do know this. The real game hasn't even started yet. The picture of me sleeping haunted me. Someone had been inside my house. Watching. Waiting. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was something else. I barely spoke to Mark over the next day, both of us lost in our own thoughts. I wanted to think this was just Sophie or Jake trying to scare me, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because whoever was behind this wasn't just trying to make me angry. They were trying to make me terrified. The text came late that night. Unknown number, tomorrow. 8 p.m. The place where it all started. I knew exactly where that was. The hotel. The same damn hotel where Sophie and Jake had met. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. Whoever this was, they weren't hiding anymore. They wanted me there. They wanted a showdown. I texted Mark. I got a message. They want me to meet them at the hotel. Mark, I'll be there. I arrived at the hotel 10 minutes early. The air was thick with humidity, the neon sign buzzing overhead. My hands were clammy, my heart pounding. I walked into the lobby and spotted them instantly. Sophie. Jake. And Mark. All standing there. Waiting. No one spoke. Then, from behind the front desk, a woman stepped forward. A hotel manager. I was told to play this, she said, lifting a remote. Before I could even react, the lobby TV screen flickered to life. A new video. And this one? It changed everything. The footage showed Sophie and Jake, but it wasn't from the security cameras. It was from inside the hotel room. Up close. Personal. Someone had been recording them. Sophie let out a choked gasp. What the? Jake turned white. Where did you get this? The manager shook her head. A man came in this morning. Told me to play it for you. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. A man? Mark stepped forward, fists clenched. Who the hell gave you this? The manager hesitated. I don't know his name, but, she looked around, lowering her voice. He said to tell you he's sorry for everything. Silence. Then, Sophie's phone buzzed. She pulled it out with shaking hands, eyes darting across the screen. Her lips parted. She looked up at Jake. At me. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." Jake grabbed the phone from her. Read the message. And sank into the nearest chair, his face a mask of horror. Mark and I rushed over. He turned the phone so we could see. A new text. From the unknown number. Unknown number, game over. I win. Unknown number, check your bank accounts. Mark swore under his breath and fumbled for his phone. I did the same. My stomach dropped. Every account. Every single one. Drained. All of us. It was never about revenge. It was about money. It took less than an hour to confirm what had happened. Sophie's phone had been hacked. Jake's emails had been breached. Whoever had been watching us had used every bit of chaos we created to their advantage. While we were too busy destroying each other, they had been siphoning money. Not just from our personal accounts, from our businesses, our investments. Gone. Millions. Jake shot up from his seat. Who the hell did this? Sophie looked sick. I don't know. I don't know. Then Mark, in a voice so low it barely registered, I do. We all turned. His face was pale. His hands trembled. It was my brother. I had heard about Mark's older brother, David, but never met him. A tech guy. Smart. Always on the edge of legality. But I never thought, he's been in debt for years, Mark muttered. I always knew he had a gambling problem, but I never thought. His voice cracked. Sophie backed away. You're saying your brother did this? He must have been watching, I realized. Waiting for the right moment. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his face still ghost white. He used us. Mark nodded stiffly. And I saw something flicker in his expression. Not just anger. Guilt. Because this whole time, we thought we were in control. But we were never the ones running the game. The fallout was fast and brutal. Mark cut all ties with his brother. Lawyers got involved. But the money? Most of it was gone. Jake and Sophie tried to fix things between them, but trust was a shattered thing. I heard through mutual friends that they officially separated a few months later. As for me? I walked away from it all. From Jake. From Sophie. From the mess we made. I started over. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. It did. More than I ever thought possible. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I would never let anyone play me again.